tunnel in my life. Hold tight, some beauties appeared and brightened my side.
Hello Somerville, my name is Ed Halloran. Welcome to the Somerville Labor Show. As you can see, we are on a different set here. It's a different setting for us. A little different, a little more laid back. What we're going to be doing today is talking about wage theft. Now, we've talked about it in the past, and I think it's incredibly important that we raise the issue again because I think we have a deal on this wage theft law, and we're turning our attention to it. It's incredibly important. So local labor activist groups, too many to mention, but we will mention them later on, have been making news recently. As you may be aware, if you have been following our show, we have had a few guests on the show, one being Penny Taylor, who's with us today, also Marcy Gelb-Goldstein from the National Council of Occupational Safety and Health to discuss an ever-growing epidemic, wage theft. Recently, the Somerville Neighborhood News and this show also had a couple of shows and also reported just how widespread wage theft is in the greater Boston area and in the city of Somerville as well. So we have some great news. I have Penny Taylor here. Welcome to the show, Penny.
Thank you so much, Ed.
All right,
great to be here.
Great to have you back, man. I'll tell you right now. So this is, I guess you just don't take no for an answer, right?
When we fight, we win.
Yeah, exactly. See, she's doing all this, doing it again. I love that kind of stuff. You know, it's a when we fight, we win moment. So let me ask you a question. Now, we know you are a dedicated activist in the city. There's no doubt about that. And something came up right around December 12th. And I guess it's a news release that came here. If you don't mind, I'll read that, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, because it's really not my show. This is your show. On Thursday, December 12th, after a 2-year campaign led by Our Revolution's Somerville Labor Working Group, the City of Somerville Council passed an amendment to give the city tools to crack down on wage theft. The amendment makes Somerville's ordinance one of the strongest in the country and by far the most comprehensive in the state. So I yield to you.
All right.
That's the new thing now, so I yield to you. Go ahead.
Great. Well, yeah, absolutely. So last Thursday at the last City Council meeting of the year, there is a unanimous vote to approve the amendments to the wage theft ordinance. So we had an ordinance on the books and have spent several years working with a broad coalition of labor groups, lawyers, worker groups, worker center, immigrant centers, to come up with a really strong piece of legislation, and we were very thrilled to have it unanimously approved on Thursday.
Why did you guys feel the need to jump into this and just really delve into the whole thing and just tear it apart and tear it down and say, you know what, something's happening here? You're getting like, how many people are coming to you, especially in unions? And I would imagine you're very familiar with the Carpenters Union, obviously. This has happened quite a bit.
Yeah, so there was a wage theft ordinance on the books. It had never been enforced, and there was a little loophole in it that we thought maybe it isn't ever going to get enforced. So given the opportunity to fix that loophole, we thought, well, why not go whole hog and make it the strongest that we possibly can? So the Carpenters Union has been involved in multiple cities across the state, passing wage theft ordinances to protect workers on construction sites. I think we talked about it on the show before.
Yes, we did.
That is a common place for wage theft, for workers to experience withholding some wages, all wages, and be threatened in a lot of ways. So we thought, you know, especially with all the new construction in Somerville, something that's very important was to expand the ordinance to be sure those workers were covered. And what we just got approved, it covers workers on the largest construction sites, so big commercial projects and larger residential sites. So while it still doesn't cover, every construction worker in Somerville, we think it is a major improvement.
So really, and I think we talked about this off air before we came on, now that you've got this, you're going to have this signed hopefully by the mayor, with great support from the city council, as I understand it. Really, the work begins now. This is really the hard work. I mean, I guess if you believe that the work was difficult, just getting where you got to get something finally done and down on paper.
It's one step in a long process. We thought we had this tool in the books already, then realized it wasn't as strong as we needed it to be. that's one step. We've talked, along with this campaign, the need for a worker center has really emerged. At one of the meetings we had, we kind of thought, if you were a worker in Somerville experiencing this, where would you go? And I was in a meeting with city councilors and advocates, and we kind of didn't know. And so one of the things I think is really important that will involve a lot of organization moving forward is the Wage Theft Advisory Committee. So one thing this law does is enshrine a group that helps the city enforce the ordinance, whether it's getting information from the Attorney General's office or helping workers that come to the city to find the support and resources they need to file a complaint. I think was a missing piece of making sure there actually was support for workers.
So that's the teeth.
Yeah.
Because this is what we talked about before. We were very concerned about you can pass as many ordinances as you want on the books, and it's great to have them, but we can't find any way to back them up. So this advisory committee will be advising, and will they be the ones who will be enforcing a lot of this? Where will people go to? Who will people, like if I have a problem and something happens, what would I do? Where would I go?
Yeah, to the Wage Theft Advisory Committee. So, at this point, some of the language is that any complaints that come in go to the committee, and so there's basically a clearinghouse. So we are keeping track of all the complaints that are coming in and making sure that they get filed correctly with the Attorney General's office, but also that some of the teeth. That's the information. So if a business applies for a license, the city needs information about that business and their history related to wage theft. The committee will help do that research and be the communicator with the Attorney General's office.
Okay, so now the pains and penalties.
Yep.
These are the things that are so important of the enforcement.
Yep.
What will happen to a business, per se, if they were to fail to follow these rules?
Sure. So one thing that could happen, so by rules, do you mean hourly wage
I think if there's a violation,
Yep.
let me put it this way, in my business, in the union business, if there's a violation and we were all to the Division of Labor, for instance, and we were successful there would be a posting that is put up basically saying that someone violated something.
Yeah.
Are we looking at something like that as well? Some of those things going to be happening, you think?
Yeah, so in thinking of this as this broader campaign, some of the penalties are educational and informative. So letting the community and workers know. So if an employer has a violation in their history, what they need to do business in the city and with the city are things like posting wage and hour laws in their place of employment. They might have to post a wage bond, which is another responsibility of the committee in recommending if an employer needs to pursue a wage bond. And that, again, at the end of the day, is always about making sure the workers get paid. So making sure there is money if something happens to ensure that they can get paid.
And one of the things we spoke about off air as well, we do a lot of this off air, I think it's great. We had a discussion about what will happen with employers who currently have business in the city and prospective new employees coming in to hire people. And you did mention something about educating them and letting them know exactly, what they should expect and how to keep your house in order, do the right things, pay people, no violations,
Yeah, so we were really fortunate to have some city staff work really closely with us in this ordinance to make sure it can be integrated into the processes of procuring contracts with the city, pursuing a license for your business, getting your site inspected so that when employers are informed that we have this ordinance and that they are expected to prove that they haven't violated wage and hour laws.
Safety's huge, right?
Yeah, safety's huge. And one of the things actually that came out of this, so in trying to make this the most expansive ordinance ever, we put a lot of stuff in there that we think is
That's my next question.
Yeah, we put a lot of stuff that's definitely important to workers, but as we went through this really long and careful process of reviewing it, we realized there were enough elements that had to do with worker safety that since we were amending a tight wage theft ordinance, we're looking into actually expanding and having a whole worker safety ordinance that will be one of the next campaigns that comes
So
up.
compared to, I don't know, Greater Boston, other cities and towns, why, I am going to ask that question, even though you partially answered some of it, why is Somerville's ordinance more expansive?
Yeah.
How do you know that? I mean, in your work with the Carpenters Union and things like that?
So a lot of different cities. I quickly think of Lynn, Springfield. I mean, Cambridge and Boston also have wage theft ordinances on the books, and there are lots of different component parts you can include. Ours includes all of them and makes some of them way stronger than any of the other examples. So for instance, Lynn was we worked with them quite closely and modeled a lot of our ordinance off of theirs. We've expanded the role of the advisory committee, knowing that it is going to be staffed with workers, staffed with these organizations that want this to be enforced. So we've made their role a little more robust.
So it's rigid.
It's more expansive
Okay.
and more democratic, I think, and including representatives of groups that are directly affected by
So then
wage
what
theft.
I think what we're saying here is what I think I'm hearing is that Somerville's going to be a great place to work.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it sounds that way to me. I'm hoping that be the case. More people are going to want to come here. More people, people are going to be aware
Yeah.
of what is really at stake here when you come to work and you have a business here in Somerville. I have another quote here. It says, the robust wage theft ordinance creates new financial disincentives for employers to underpay their workers, including requiring that employers with a history of wage theft post a wage bond to ensure workers will be paid in the future. What is that, to post a wage bond?
Excuse me. So it's basically insurance. So
Okay.
there are different types of bonds that different businesses are required to post. In this case, if a business has a track record, one of the things that's important in the ordinance is that if a business has been found guilty of wage theft or many other kind of triggering items related to wage and hour laws, then if they haven't paid their employees back, then they're not going to get a license. So one of the things that we wrote in is basically process one of reconciliation. So,
Okay.
If you want to do business, but you haven't paid your employees back, we'll work with you to come up with a plan to try to get you on track.
So businesses could lose their license over this. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible. Or,
Okay.
or they won't be able to renew their license, definitely,
Okay.
if this
All right.
happens in the meantime.
So let me do this. I'll give you a little break there on your talking, and I'll do a little bit of it right here. So this is something, and I know this gentleman, Ben Cavaria, who's a great person. I love him from the Welcome Project. Says today marks an important day in Somerville, which serves many of our residents most impacted by wage theft. This is an ordinance that ensures that all employees will earn a fair wage for the work that they do. I'm excited for the future of Somerville.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is, that's amazing. And Ben and the Welcome Project get a lot of the complaints right now from workers in Somerville.
So a lot of people come to Ben, they come to the Welcome Project, and when they get there, many people are foreigners, right? And they come in and Ben basically will help them. And there's another group you were talking about too.
Yeah, the Brazilian Workers Project. So, Worker Center. So, right now there isn't a worker center in Somerville.
We want one.
We want one. So
We
that's
want one. How can we get one?
How can we get one? We can organize and get one.
I think we're going to get one.
I think so too. Yeah, we're hoping. There are a couple different ideas. On
I think it's going to happen,
so
Penny.
we're closer than ever. I mean, just seeing what this coalition has already accomplished
Yep.
makes me feel confident that we can push for a worker center.
You know what's very exciting? I'll tell you why. Because I have been around for a while now, and I've watched activists like yourself, and I know what drives you because I feel it. But there's a lot of people that probably don't realize it, and they're like, why are these people? I've said this to you before on past shows. I mean, you're out there and you're really plugging away and you're working hard, and your weekends are gone, and you're working hard, and you're doing things, and you're like, well, you know why? Because you're trying to make where you live a better place. You care about the people that live in this community, and I think more people should be doing that. I think it's incredibly important. And I'm really, happy that you were able to accomplish, you, Marcy, and all the other people. So in closing, because we're getting close to the end of the show, can you give a little plug to the people who really push this thing along, if you could?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a member of the Our Revolution Somerville Labor Working Group. So my colleagues in that group were really essential. The 3 city councilors who are in the License and Permits Committee really took this on. Chair Mary Jo Rossetti, JT Scott really convened a working group outside of the committee meetings where we hashed out a lot of the issues that were still unresolved. And Willem Baugh is a member who, in literally the 11th p.m. hour, pushed this meeting through and took over as vice chair. So I have to give a lot of gratitude to them. Greater Boston Legal Services was essential in providing legal review and really helping think through some critical questions and answer some real concerns. So they put in countless hours in seeing this through, and it meant a lot to me for them to be involved. Legal counsel from the carpenters and the Boston building trades were looking at this and asking questions about how it would impact their workers. That made it a lot better. All these questions made it better. National Employment Law Project, the Mass Attorney General's office, and Marcy's with the National Center for Occupational Safety and Health, as you mentioned. I'm surely forgetting someone, but
You are.
so yeah, I'm forgetting
You
some
are.
of it.
We know you are, but that's okay. That's okay. I think they understand because it takes a massive effort. It's just like Somerville Stands Together. I mean, look at Somerville Stands Together basically is a group that embraces everyone in the city, and they've been wonderful, and kudos to them, and can continue on doing all of that good work. And I want to thank you so much for all the hard work that you continue to do. And you know what? I almost feel like you're like, I don't know, like you're part of the show now.
Oh shucks! Well, anytime. I really feel honored to be here.
You already get three or four appearances on here.
3 so far.
Is it 3 so far? Yeah. So you've been on the show
maybe
quite a bit now.
more,
So, and I think there's other things you're going to be involved in, and I think it's exciting. And I want to thank everybody for watching the show. This is it's a short segment, but keep watching because there's going to be more. We will be revisiting this again.
Yep.
Especially when something happens. Now, the mayor's going to sign this.
That's the next step.
No, the mayor's going to sign
Yep,
this.
the mayor's going to sign this, and then we'll have a big community meeting about it, and that will start where everyone can do a little piece in learning what wage theft is and how we can fight it here.
Well, you know what? I remember when I was a young man many years ago,
Yesterday.
and Somerville leads the way. Very proud of the city, always have been, and once again, we are showing that we are leading the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
for
being on
having
the
me.
show.
Great to be here.
All right, Penny Taylor, wage theft. When we fight, we win. Peace. Hello, Somerville. My name is Ed Halloran, and here we are again. We have another segment that we are doing, and this is something new that we're doing here. We're doing a couple 15-minute segments. We have some very important subjects that we're discussing. We want to play a little bit of catch-up. I have our very own Greg Hill here, and Greg is the assistant producer on this show. He kind of just moved.
So you tell me.
Well, he moved right in. He moved right in. And he's doing a wonderful job. As you know, we have the Harvard Grad Student Union, United Auto Workers.
That's right.
Okay. We had Maddie Genwin on this show.
Right.
And she's part of the bargaining committee. She was really wonderful. She explained, their plight.
She laid it right out.
She really did.
Yeah.
And I'm going to run a video right now, just so you guys understand exactly what took place and what the crust of the issue is. Just watch this for about a minute or so. Okay, that's another thing that we have to talk about here. So I want to give you a quote. There's a lot of quotes here by a Harvard spokesperson, Swain. All right. The Harvard spokesperson told Vice.com that the university believes that calls for a strike is unwarranted, and he emphasized that the university continues to approach these negotiations in good faith and has offered substantive proposal on compensation and benefits as well as other areas of concern raised by the union. What's your response on that so far? What have we got?
I think it's time. You know, I will say the Harvard has been showing up at the bargaining table.
Okay.
But we have been bargaining for over a year and a half, and we're really far away from a lot of issues. And to my mind, they're kind of tinkering around the edges of the minor issues, and they're not really working on the main issues with us, and they're not scheduling the time that we need to work on these.
So I guess my question is this: when does it become you either bargain in good faith or you're not really bargaining in good faith if you're just just stalling? That's really where it becomes a problem.
I feel like they're stalling. I get the impression they're waiting for this bargaining committee to graduate, and then they want to go on with no contract.
Well, I think you guys are going to have to, do exactly what
our
you're
goal
doing.
was always to try to get a contract this semester because our members have gone long enough without a union contract. So hopefully, if they don't get us a contract by December 3rd, hopefully the strike will show them that we actually do deserve a contract.
Well, you know what? It's going to be interesting. There's no doubt about that. So one of the things I really want to get into here, and it's always disturbing when we talk about harassment and discrimination. So can you give me some examples of why this is a major concern and the need to have this major provision in your contract? I think this is a big one, right, for you guys?
It's a big one, but it's also a basic one. You know, it's one of the main issues our members voted on, because Harvard has a serious Me Too problem, and I think people who've been following the news for the last several years will know that Harvard has a serious Me Too problem. We have too many incidents of professors preying on their students and it going unresolved for decades, and we have too many incidents of student-on-student harassment that don't get addressed by the powers that be, and our members really wanted a stronger protection from discrimination and harassment at Harvard, because Harvard has shown again and again that it's just going to turn a blind eye if it's not in the interest of Harvard to solve the issue.
Okay, so as you can see from that footage there, you can see that we had give you a little bit of flavor of what Maddie and a lot of her members are going through right now. I mean, they're really just barely scratching the surface on a contract, and they really don't have a contract yet, and they are on strike. So these are graduate students that are seeking higher education. And while doing so, they're working for Harvard in many professional capacities, that they have families to support, student debt, and it's really, really very difficult. So Greg, you were there that day. Tell me a little bit about at Harvard Yard. Well, is that the Bostonian coming up, Nick?
Yeah, it was right in Harvard Yard, Ed. This was December 3rd on a very cold, snowy day. But those young people were out there marching, just like, you know, many picket lines I've seen over the years, and they were determined, they were loud, and they kept at it.
And you interviewed a gentleman, what was his name, do you recall?
Justin Blesh.
Justin Blesh.
Yeah, and he is one of the spokespeople for, I believe he's also on the bargaining committee for the Harvard Graduate Students Union. And the other thing, not only did the activity of their picket line impress me, but I went over to the, what you'd call their boiler room. That's where they do all their coordination over there that day, in the Phillips Brooks House, which is the student center. And I was really impressed. I mean, they were just, everybody there was doing something and connecting with somebody else, and it just looked like an old-fashioned political you know,
well,
a boiler room. And
let's do this. Yeah. Let's watch this old-fashioned, you know, you did a great job, by the way. I want to give kudos to Greg on this out at Harvard. Yeah, so watch this 2 to 3 minute video with this gentleman.
Hi, I'm Justin Blesh. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the economics department, and I'm also on the bargaining committee for the Harvard Graduate Students Union, HGSU UAW. I got involved a couple years ago when there was a travel ban, and the union was one of the only groups on campus that was really doing effective things to get the university to respond effectively to the needs of international student workers. Also really motivated by parents' issues. It's really expensive to have a kid while you're in grad school. A lot of people are in their late 20s, early 30s, and the university doesn't do nearly enough to support young families.
So Justin, how has Harvard responded so far to the strike?
We haven't gotten any word from them yet. Okay. So we had our last bargaining session on Monday. So today's Tuesday, the first day of the strike. So we're hoping that just with big turnout, they see that we're really serious about these issues. These issues matter a lot to student workers, and they need to bargain with us.
What have been some of Harvard's positions on your the latest round of negotiations that you had?
So they've really barely moved. They have offered a little bit of money on dental insurance and childcare, but I think dental insurance costs over $500. They've offered about a $20 subsidy per student. So a lot of their economic proposals haven't really made a substantive dent on the costs that student workers face. And they're so far in the a fair grievance procedure for complaints of discrimination and harassment. They continue to say that their internal Title IX process is enough, and we know that it's not. We need a process that is jointly funded by the university and the union, where there's someone external who we know will give a fair review and a fair investigation.
Okay, we're back. That gives you a little idea of what they're fighting for and what they're really looking for. So Greg, you were there on that very first day. What was it that struck you the most? What really struck a chord? I mean, you've been through a lot of these. You've seen a lot of these. What's the most concerning thing to you with the Harvard Graduate Student Union right now?
What impressed me was their determination to be out there in so many of them in this foul, cold weather. I didn't detect a false note out there. There was nothing, you know, it's not like, you know, hey, this is a goof or anything like that. No, these brothers and sisters were deadly serious about what they're doing, and their livelihood is on the line, and they're up against basically a multinational corporation that's in the education business.
Well, it seems to me that in my discussion with Matty Gentleman here, I know money's so important. We all know that, okay?
Yeah.
And a contract, I mean, they really do need this contract, but harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination, some of the things that they were calling Harvard out for is really, really disturbing and concerning here.
And the thing of it is that Harvard has had some high-profile professors who have been, accused down through for decades of sexual harassment and what have you, and yet they were still holding their positions for the longest time.
So basically what Harvard is doing here, what the Harvard grad students are doing here is they're looking for parity with other unions
Yes.
in Harvard, and they're looking for a contract that would give them the opportunity to go to arbitration,
Right.
to hold people accountable.
Right.
We talked about this on the last show, and in a contract there are so many provisions that are so important. Those are the guts of a contract that everybody has to have, the basic needs, and they're trying to carve some things out, and the arbitration process is probably incredibly unfair, in my opinion. As president of a union, it's really not right. It should not be happening. So one thing that struck me was that Matty Gentleman said that there's Harvard has a serious Me Too problem. Mm-hmm. She mentioned that, and it really struck a chord with that as well. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, and in my interview that I had with Matty, I'm really believing that she and the rest of her union members will get a contract, and hopefully this won't drag on, as it seems to have been doing so far. Now, this has been, how long ago was it? December 3rd?
Yeah, and they're going to have a one-time bargaining session with Harvard managers tomorrow.
Okay.
And that would be December 17th.
Okay. Well, they have great support from us over here at the Somerville Labor Show.
Yes, they also are getting support from other local unions, either on campus or off campus. They're getting good support from the press.
Well, I want to thank you for going out there to Harvard Yard. Just don't park your car there in Harvard Yard.
I don't drive, so I don't have that problem.
Might get towed.
Yeah.
You didn't get it, I know. So thank you for doing all that.
Sure.
Good scoop. And just to let you know, Greg is going to be out there with his camera. And he will be asking questions. He will be talking to people. So I want to thank you for doing that. And what is that you have in your hand?
Well, Ed, you're very big on giving guests T-shirts, and I think now it's time that, as an executive producer, I should be giving you a T-shirt, and Jude will be getting one. Jude,
this
yours is on order, but
what is this?
This T-shirt says, "Somerville, gateway to method."
I think you misspelled Somerville.
It was meant to be misspelled.
I know that.
I didn't produce this. This was produced by Minimum Wage Art, and this is a hot seller.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't.
Well, next time,
you're at the T-shirts, Ed, and you're going to get this, and we want to see some pictures of you wearing this. Okay?
You're going to get it. And a prevailing wage art is really what we're looking at right now. So we'd like to have that. We'd spice it up a little bit. That's a wonderful T-shirt. I will cherish that.
You're damn right you will, Ed.
I will. All the way to Medford.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so
Ed.
much. All right.
When we fight, we win, brother.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
That's what my grandfather used to say. Thank you.